Let's do this.
1, 2, 3, swing it.
Do you have an old sound tape or your favorite cassette tape that you want converted to CD or MP3, a DJ or even a sound system for your wedding, birthday or special occasion? Then why not get in contact with KTR Records on 07931 152 448 or check out our website on www.ktrrecords.com. We have been in business since 2004 and also undertake community projects. So for your remixes, dublets and all your sound editing needs, why not contact KTR Records, official sponsor of World Jam Global Radio. KTR Records, coming your way!
I was terrified about sharing the vulnerabilities of people with difficulties reading and spelling words. However, I could see the value in sharing, and I have taken the time to make some notes about this in my book, Dyslexic: The Silent Difference. You can get your copy now at www.a1tribe.com or amazon.com or amazon.co.uk. Thank you again, everyone, for your support.
Do you like music like this?
Great music all the time.
Or like this?
The music you love.
Maybe this.
Great music that makes you want to turn up the volume loud.
Or life track like this.
Especially where human life is concerned. Surely, sooner or later, people will realize that lives actually matter.
Then you're in the right place. Keep it locked to World Jam Global, where music is harmony.
Music 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Yeah, I'm a World Jam. Hotter than them.
See live schedule.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Back in the day, I didn't really care about the system. It was all about survival. It was do or die. I had too many rivals. I was too young and foolish to stay in school. I learned my lessons in the streets. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail. Trying to cope with this living hell. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
We're just a few minutes away from going live on Issues Today. Alongside your host, Kervin Julian. On World Jam Global Radio, we've got our guest, Jennifer Cain. We've got D. Martin. We've got Yolanda McNair. Alongside my producer, TJ, Teresa Gallagher. Standing by just a few minutes from now.
I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you.
I'm using this opportunity to share this to as many platforms as I possibly can.
Kinda stupid.
While you are waiting for us to go live, please use the opportunity to share this stream live right across the world. Please share. It's live on my Facebook page as we speak.
But I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison.
Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Pay for my crime, pay for my crime.
You can follow us live on www.worldjamglobalradio.com. You can follow us on Facebook Live, on Issues Today,
I paid for my crime.
on Restream, on Twitch,
This felony off my back so I can get my life on track.
and every police brutality,
Like an ordinary citizen.
wrongful conviction site you can possibly find on Facebook and social media.
Statewide.
We are live, going right across the globe.
Not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole
Big shout out to our hardcore supporters, Lorraine Thompson, Vanessa Whirling,
ain't about being.
Asia.
Life is too short to spend it all in jail. Trying to cope with this living hell. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
We're also live right now on YouTube.
I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm
Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio.
telling my story to you and you. I had to repent, I must admit, I was doing all kind of stupid shit. Now I'll sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters.
So you're joining us this week for a real powerhouse discussion with guest Jennifer Cain of Blind. That's Black Leaders Improving Negro Development. Supporting Jennifer is D. Martin and Yolanda McNair, both fully established supporters and advocates and members of our roundtable right here on Issues Today. Public speakers against police brutality in their own right. And today we're asking the question, what makes someone with no direct connection to police brutality take up an advocacy for those who have been victimized with such passion that people travel from all over America to attend her events? Prepare yourself for a passionate encounter and perhaps, just perhaps, the voice you needed to hear to get involved yourself. We are, yes, talking about Jennifer Cain. Stand by, we'll be with you in just a few short minutes.
Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day
We are all set to go.
and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass.
1.5 minutes away from live broadcasting.
Nah.
Well, in fact, we're live broadcasting now, aren't we?
Evil.
But introducing our guest.
The power, the
Stand by. 1.5 minutes, 90 seconds.
man. Pay for my crime, pay for my crime, pay for my crime, pay for my crime. Pay for my crime. All those drive-by killings, stop them. It ain't about nothing. He who was out sin, let him cast the first stone. I'm trying to get this felony off my back so I can get my life on track and have the right to vote and live like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide, and put down those knives, stop stabbing each other. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this real powerhouse discussion. It may be the one time where I'm going to be outspoken by these ladies. Okay, we are now going live to our guests, and first let me just introduce my producer, my right hand, riding shotgun as always, TJ, Therese Gallagher. How are we doing, TJ?
Really, really, really good, boss.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Well, tell us what's been happening over the last week or so, TJ.
Well, going back to the last month, with our first roundtable this month, we didn't have Yolanda, McNair, or D. Martin on because they were out walking their talk when it came to advocacy and how we get involved. But we still had an excellent roundtable.
We did.
In the meantime, they're joining us, and I want them to explain to us, them meeting together in Portland and just what they do. And then Jennifer Cain, she's ahead of Blind, Blind, and just how she is, without anybody else giving her reason, but her own soul of passion for this.
We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but I just want me and you to talk about it for a minute because we had this conversation during the week, didn't we? Because it was quite fascinating how that came about. I came across Jennifer a couple of weeks ago, whenever it was, and my heart just told me to reach out to her, and I did, and she responded almost straight away. I then invited her onto a show, and then I left the rest in your hands. And after you spoke to her, you called me with such a grateful heart that and explaining to me that you'd spoken to Yolanda, you'd spoken to Dee, and these are, although they don't physically know each other, they'd all connected, and it was all some sort of a connection. I just felt that God had really moved to bring this group of women together for a show such as this.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely knew it was meant to be. It just clicked so well. And, I turn that over to the man upstairs. The Lord just helps with these. We have so much interference from our stories not getting out there that I think he's on our side, boss.
Yeah,
absolutely. He's on my side.
So I'm kind of looking forward to hearing what Jennifer's going to bring, and we're going to be introducing her shortly.
Right, and I just felt her fire. Yeah. I felt her fire, and I couldn't think of anybody else besides Yolanda McNair and Dee Martin that could that have as much fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's going to be a very explosive, wonderful show.
Well, we're going to get there very shortly, but just on the back of last week, we had Mary Kofinko last week, didn't we? And that was a powerful and emotional show.
It absolutely was, and so sad.
Yeah. And she was the auntie of a Fermin, Vincent Valenzuela, a fellow who was choked to death.
The spokesperson for that family that's grieving.
Yeah, I mean,
hard.
And what a great advocate she was, standing in the gap for her family, for her nephew, and fighting for justice for him.
And she couldn't be with us today.
No, we understand that, but that's good. But we have a part 2 coming up on that one, haven't we?
Yes, we do.
And next week, one of our guests that we've got speaking today from our round table, we've got the part 2 of Andre Gladden, haven't we? Blind Men Can't See.
Yes, we do. And isn't that wonderful? I'm so excited for that to evolve into what is going on. And, Dee Martin, she's part of our team. It's part 2 with her.
Oh, she's family now. Dee Martin is family now. Yeah. I mean, that's family now. Okay, so.
Oh, yeah.
Just like Yolanda, Dee is now family, and Yolanda is in fact, Yolanda is like the mama of the family now, right?
Yolanda is old.
Don't say that. Don't say she's old. But she's
the one you got to go to for questions.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah, I actually thank God for the day that I encountered Yolanda, and our relationship have really blossomed and strengthened ever since. So that's
right? Yeah, that's right. And I love our whole round table. Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody is special. And I felt that specialness with this Jennifer Cain.
Yeah.
And obviously, you told me to book her, so here she is, boss.
Okay, well, we're going to be speaking to Jennifer.
Full of fire.
Yeah, we're going to be speaking to her in just a few minutes. But before we do, let me just introduce you to our two other guests who are supporting Jennifer today. Members of our roundtable and guest speakers, public speakers in their own right. First, let's go to our latest addition to the roundtable team, Dee Martin. How are we doing, Dee?
We're doing great. How are you?
I'm well. So glad to have you on the show supporting Jennifer.
Thank you. With pleasure.
Anyhow, just remind our audience a little bit about you. Just tell them, a majority of them have probably heard you a few times now, but just a refresher.
So, obviously, my name is Dee Martin. I currently reside in Sacramento, California. We are residents from the Bay Area, Oakland, California. I am a wife, a mother, a sister, cousin of many. I definitely advocate on behalf of my family and the member that I've lost due to police violence, lack of accountability, lack of transparency. So I am a member of Pacific Northwestern Family Circle out in Portland, Oregon, as well as Post. I was introduced by that through Yolanda. So I definitely look to her for a ton of information on how that I can better bring this to Sacramento. Sacramento is not as active as I'd like it to be. So you guys are all resources to how to bring that here. So my family is active here as well. I am the sister of Andre Gladden, who was executed by the Portland Police Department this year, January 6th. That officer, too, has not had any criminal indictment put against him. So as of March 7th, he walked free, and that completely frustrates me. So that's the drive, along with all the other families. We definitely try, or my family and I, definitely try to make it out to Portland as often as we can on behalf of Andre and the other members of PNWFC, because there's a lot of support that's needed. Definitely a lot of support. I wouldn't say if this has not happened, you wouldn't understand, because that's not true. There's a lot of individuals that actually have a heart for these family members and what's going on, and do their best, their due diligence to bring awareness so that it does not happen. And for them to not have it directly happen, I think I appreciate that a lot, to just have a heart and want to do what needs to be done to bring change. Social change is important. Yeah. It's definitely important.
Thank you very much for that very sharp introduction there, Dee. And without no further ado, I introduce you to the mother of the round table, and another one that I'm absolutely honoured to call my friend, and one of the major reasons why I decided to set up the round table, Yolanda McNair. How are we doing, Yolanda? Hi, Yolanda. Can you hear me, Yolanda? I think we've lost Yolanda. Are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. There we go. Messing about with technology again, are we?
Right. Facebook has been doing their thing, and we know that the feds have been doing their thing, so it's not surprising.
Anyhow, Yolanda, just to very briefly just give another introduction as to who you are, what you do, what you're about. And it's just an honor to have you on the show again.
Well, thank you. My name is Yolanda McNair. I'm the president of Post, Protect Our Stolen Treasures. We have 5 chapters. We're looking to have a 6th and maybe a 7th if D agrees open this year. We are in Portland, Oregon. That's our 2nd chapter. Greenville, South Carolina is our 3rd. Columbus, Ohio is our 4th. And of course, we are here in Detroit, but we also have one in Lawton, Oklahoma. We're comprised of family members who lost loved ones to police murder and brutality. And
decided we're not going to wait for a rescue hero. We're going to be that one for everybody. We don't just fight for ours that we lost. We fight for everyone's. Um, it's important that people know and understand that we're not out here just to yell the name of our loved one lost, because it's more than that. It's very important that we represent everyone.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. I'm out of Detroit, born and raised. I fight for everyone. They can tell you that. I make myself available to everyone.
I can testify to that.
Yeah, no matter what time or day.
Yeah.
I do. That's
And I
there.
can too. I can justify to that. And I appreciate you for that too, an awful lot. You're really very, very appreciated.
Thank you. But most importantly, I'm the mother of Adacia Miller, a beautiful 24-year-old African American young lady who had everything going for her and was just out celebrating her life when it ended in her death one day before her 25th birthday.
The story still brings tears to my eyes. I remember the first time you shared that story with us here, and I remain as gobsmacked today as I did when I first heard it. We've come on an amazing journey since then, and now we've formed a round table, which is a table of experienced advocates and speakers, which also include former chiefs of police, attorneys, etc., Jonathan Newton and Jerry Summers in particular, exonerees like Mark Clements. We've also had another former chief of police in Justin Powers, alongside our advocates who speak up. And in that, we're really looking at trying to find a way to enforce change in one way or another, bring about change or bring about awareness.
Scott Rushing.
And Scott Rushing and Patrick Lane, yes, absolutely.
Patrick Lane, yeah.
We have a formidable team on this round table,
Right.
and again, I believe it will grow and rotate as we continue to pursue this journey that we're on, which is what led us to encounter Jennifer Cain, whom I'm just about to introduce. And again, as we just said at the top of the show, Jennifer Cain wasn't known to me until I came across her. I believe it was either I commented on something that she'd written, or she'd commented on something that I'd posted, or I'd seen her comment on something else that somebody else had posted that I was commenting on as well. But I saw her name and I thought I hadn't seen her in anything before. And I checked it out and I came across Blind, and I thought, I need to talk to this woman. Because Blind, which stands for Black Leaders Improving Negro Development, attracted my attention. And on that note, I cannot hesitate any longer. I need to introduce our main speaker for this particular show, and it's Jennifer Cain, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about who she is, where she's from, what she's about, what she does, and why she does it. Jennifer Cain, welcome to Issues Today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. How you doing today?
We're great today. It's just an honor and a privilege to have you on board. What we'd like for you to do for us is to tell them who you are, where you're from, and just give them a little bit of a background story about yourself. And then we'll start talking about Blind, if you don't mind.
Okay, well, I'm Jennifer Cain, born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, down south. I have, started in the movement for personal reasons, having a family member that's incarcerated for a crime he didn't commit, seeing the things that was affecting my neighborhood, our community, seeing what was going on as far as police brutality, the racism in America that we facing. And I felt like it was my duty to do something about what was going on. And especially being here in Memphis, it's a lot of those things that's going on and people are not aware of because it's not affecting them. And I feel like we need to change that narrative and a lot of things. So I came up out there in the streets, doing a protest when they had a police killing here, going to different events that's talking about the issues and engaging in the community and doing all of that, I just started brainstorming of what can I do? I need to do something more than what I'm doing. And that's when I came up with Blind.
How much support and help did you have from the community when you first generated the idea of Blind?
Um, it is crazy because I cut hair on the side and I was actually cutting one of my clients' hair. And she was like, just go for it. And at first, I wasn't getting that much support. But then it's a learning process. You got to have patience. So I started getting out there, and eventually, people started to come around and support me, and that support gave me more motivation to go ahead and pursue what I need to be done. And I'm still trying to get the support from the city, but I know it's a process, and I have patience to go ahead and wait, because those who wait, good things come to those who wait.
Amen. Now, through Blind, you've been creating events around different states. Tell us about that. What are those events and what are they about? What are you trying to accomplish with these events?
Well, let me get back to Blind. Of course, Blind stands for Black Leaders Improving Negro Development. It's like I said, it's a grassroots organization here in Memphis, Tennessee. We're dedicated to education, empowerment, and social advancement to people of color. We help those who have been affected by police brutality, racism, mass incarceration, as I call it, the new discrimination, gentrification. With the events that I've been having here recently, it's about keeping that conversation going. Every time there is a police killing, we all talk about it and then it dies away. It fades away and nobody wants to talk about it. And so with me doing these panel discussions and bringing families in that have been affected by it, that's the way to keep the conversation going so people can actually realize that, hey, it doesn't have to happen to me to get involved, because you will never know when it will happen to you, especially being Black in America.
You know, when you hear someone like Yolanda, who talks about, she's got 5 chapters of her current organization that she's the president of, Post Protect Our Stolen Treasures, and she's been running that for a few years now. Does that give you hope for what you might want to accomplish with Blind, taking off in different grassroots areas of different states across your country?
Not only does it give me hope, it gives me motivation. Because we all have to work together. It's a team effort. We can't beat the system and fight for our justice and our freedom and our equality if we don't come together.
That's right.
We have to come together. We all know that it's things that was placed upon us to distract us and destroy us. We have to look above that.
Can you see a world, a state, or a community where organizations like Post and Blind can work hand in hand?
Of course. Of course. That's the whole purpose. We cannot get anything accomplished by bickering at each other. You got to remember, we're talking about fighting the entire system. The system is not broken. It doesn't need to be reformed. It's actually doing what it's supposed to do.
Keep us locked down.
So in order to fight that system, we all have to come together. My organization deals with a lot of things. Miss Yolanda organization deals with one specific thing. My organization might deal with one specific thing, but it cohorts with together, so we all come together. If I don't have the means and resources, I can send that person to Post. they can have the means and resources, and vice versa.
This is one of the things that we were talking about in one of the recent roundtables was unity, and the fact that there's not enough organizations working together. They're all competing against each other, for the slots, etc. Some of them are even bad mouthing each other because one might have more popularity than another. How important do you think it is for these organizations to actually come round a round table like ours or any others, for example, and try and find out who does what best, working towards the betterment for every state and every community?
It's funny that you asked that question. The ones that's actually doing the work, that's doing the groundwork, their work will be shown. And the ones that's out there that's not really doing what they supposed to, all in front of the media and all that, people will come to their senses and see who's really doing the work and who's not doing the work. They're going to push themselves out the way.
Do you know,
Tell it.
from the day I met Yolanda McNair, there's not a single time that I've needed her for a show to support or to find a guest or anything else to keep this thing alive. And she hasn't put herself out there at whatever cost or consequence that might be to her. And that shows me somebody who's in this fight for the long haul, and you've had many people who've actually gone out and done this, and they're doing their own thing, and they're looking for the pockets of money that's available from wherever they are, and then they're staying stuck in their thing. How important is it to make sure that an organization like yours, Blind and Post, for example, has its roots stuck deep into the community rather than the pockets?
Because you're doing the groundwork. You putting, as Miss Yolanda called it, boots on the ground. Yeah. And once you start, it's like planting a tree. Mm-hmm. Once you plant that seed, you water it up, you take care of it, and you doing what you got to do to maintain it, it's going to grow.
Let me just bring in Yolanda very quickly. So Yolanda, you're listening to Jennifer Cain talk about her trying to launch Blind and her really trying to push that out there. And you now have just mentioned that you've got 5 chapters of Post, with potentially 2 more about to start. Can you remember what it was like when you first started out, first campaigning for Audacia, and then trying to get your first Post organization put together? Could you remember what that was like, and what opposition you faced in trying to come forward with what you were doing?
Yes, I do. But first, let me correct Jennifer. Boots on the ground is my dear friend Kimberly Handy Jones. That's her slogan for her organization. Post, we have. I tell people personally, chin up, boots down. And for Post, we just gonna keep their feet to the fire. But as far as starting out, yeah, I felt like aside from my family, I was a lonely island in a big ass ocean, fighting for Audacia. But I knew, and what I always kept in mind, and I tell people even now, is fact. If I could go through what it took to get her here, including that labor and delivery, I risked my life to get my daughter here. So I will spend the rest of my life fighting for her and her justice. Because she didn't ask to come. That was my choice. And taking care of her, that's my business. So I'm going to do it. Seeking out support and finding people who wanted to work with me. It felt like I was searching for a needle in a haystack because people were so afraid of the police and the repercussions of standing up to them. And excuse my French, but it took a while to find some people that was like-minded like me that said, fuck them. They ain't nothing but people. They don a badge and a gun. They took an oath they don't give a damn about. So let me show them what it is when somebody gives a damn about what the word is. You know, I'm a woman of my word. If I can't help you, I'll find somebody who can. But I don't go out of my way to do harm to people. I know a lot of ways to hurt people, but I choose not to. Um, Finding like-minded people, sadly enough, all I had to do was just stay in my state, stay in my city. And through a mutual friend, I found all the core members, the founders of Post, which is myself, Kimberly Davis, Kevin Kellum, Martilla Jones, um, Yvette Johnson, and Penny Morgan. Now, Penny is like Jennifer, hasn't lost anyone to police brutality, but said, these are my kids just like they're everybody else's, you know, and I feel for them and I got to fight for them.
Do you know, when you think of, when you think of all of the cases that come up week in, week out, that are similar, some identical, others differ in ways to yours, for example. How important is it for an organization like Blind to exist where they're calling out black leaders to improve the development of our local people, our young people of color? How important is an organization like that, Yolanda?
It's extremely important. You know, we as the victims can't do it alone. We have to have people on the outside see what we're going through and understand that our cries are there's no soothing us. You know, there's no way that we can ever feel whole again. But them standing by us, it has the value. You know, it gives us the strength to keep standing. I was watching the movie 7 Seconds last night, and I was looking at this one scene when the parents are standing outside the young man's hospital room. Yeah. And it just dawned on me, what if Daisha had lived? And I ended up putting it on Facebook. If she had lived, I would have haunted those hallways like a ghost. You know, standing in the doorway, just watching and waiting to see if she'd take another breath. Yeah. It hollows you out in a way that nothing else can ever do. To have someone armed, they're supposed to be able to trust.
You know,
that all our lives are told to trust.
Yeah. You know, it's important if Blind, for me, if Blind is going to really make a real breakthrough in the community, it needs to start young. And I'll tell you why it needs to start young. Because when you watch When They See Us Again, and I believe you me, When They See Us is still the talk of the UK right now. In every workplace canteen. You know, I was in the sauna this morning, and I had 2 Asian lads who were in the sauna who I had this conversation over a month ago in the sauna with a group of men. And these 2 guys I've never met. They were in the sauna when I got in there this morning, because I do like to go in for a sauna and a steam on a Saturday morning. And I went in there, and these guys were talking about it, and I then started to talk about it. And one of them had seen it, and the other one hadn't. And the one who had seen it was telling the other guy about this. And you know, he wasn't black, he was Asian, but he was. You could see the passion that he had in trying to explain what the kids went through. Not the kids that became adults, but the kids. Now, you know, when you see, and I don't know how many of you have watched it yet, but I've watched it in its entirety, and I'm still gobsmacked, speechless, dumbstruck, smashed and broken inside as to the way that these young children were treated when they were first called in for questioning, the way that they were beaten and slapped about, and the terrible impact it had on every individual family that was connected to those 5 men that were being arrested and charged with that crime. But it's important that we get into our younger people the importance of not just cooperating, but the awareness of what police can do. And let me qualify it by saying this. I don't know how many of you have watched, and let me just ask you guys this, and I'm asking you, my guests on this show at the minute, and please answer and tell me whether you have or not. How many of you have actually yet watched Sugar Town, which was the documentary of Lil Victor White, Victor White, the murder of Victor White III? Have any of you watched the full documentary yet? Guys, any one of you can answer.
No, I have not watched it.
Yes, I have.
Yolanda, you have. Jennifer, have you?
No, I haven't.
Do you know?
It's a must.
It's a must watch. And I don't want to go into the ins and out of that. We've had Victor White, I think TJ might tell us, twice or 3 times we've had him on the show so far. And yes, they want punitive damages, etc. He sued them, etc. But still no one has actually faced any charges. But when they went into the investigation, right, of the local sheriff, Akal, whatever his name is, right, and what he was actually presiding over in his local enforcement office, the directives that the officers had, and 10 of his own officers gave evidence against him. And yet, the power that he wielded, the power that his family had, still meant he was A, found not guilty, and got off scot-free. Says that even when, and because for me, those law enforcement officers did wrong themselves, and I'm not sure what deals were struck or whatever, because I think they were all given prison sentences for their roles in doing what he had instructed them to do, and yet he was the only one who actually didn't get any consequence, and in fact was able to walk back into his job, which I found absolutely astounding. But when you look at this, and we were talking about Louisiana here, so it's some people can call it one of those sort of like redneck kind of states kind of thing, where it's different to one of those bigger cities. I don't want to use the wrong terminologies here, but some of the bigger cities are not going to have that kind of backwater kind of sheriff that's a law unto himself. But law enforcement over the years seems to have a law unto itself, whether it's Louisiana or New York. So, having an organization like Blind, yes, let's campaign for the wrongful convictions. Let's campaign against police brutality. But if we're talking about blind leaders improving Negro development, part of that is not just equipping them in the awareness of what law enforcement do or get up to, but it's also trying to bridge the gap to the resources that are no longer available to them that will allow them to develop into the better human beings that they can be, that keeps them out of the radar of those law enforcement officers in the first place. Is anybody feeling where I'm coming from here?
Mm-hmm.
So, Jennifer, I think this is where, for me, if I was to look to be developing Blind, I'd be saying to myself, well, okay, let's look and see what's around us. Let's see what other organizations are doing what, and how best can we serve our community under the title of Black Leaders Improving Negro Development. Now, can you tell us what your vision is for Blind and where you see it going, even in the near or present future, and then let's try and look at where we might want to develop it going forward.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, Blind hopes to take the leadership role in educating communities of color about their civil rights and models to protect our own. We support entrepreneurships, um, developing our youth, the importance of being entrepreneurs, bringing back jobs that we're lacking in our community, giving our youth opportunities that's not there. Um, like prime example in the schools. When I was going to school, we had home ec, shop, cosmetology. We had other trades. Now it's either sports or the streets. And a lot of kids can't play sports, so they go to the streets. Um, Giving our youth something to do. Working with other organizations that have resources to make that available. Like I said at first, we cannot do it on our own. But if one is willing to step up.
How long has Blind been in operation?
A year, almost a year. It'll be a year in September.
Okay, well that's new beginnings. It's a fresh idea. You've definitely got a vision, and it sounds powerful. Let me tell you from a UK point of view where we fall down. When I was growing up, we had the voluntary sector. So there was a pocket of money available by local governments, and this money was deposited. So if it was America, for example, it would be state by state. Whereas we have city by city. So the local borough councils would be responsible for holding this pocket of money for that locality, right? So it'd be Birmingham, London, whatever it is. And then in London, you've got the different boroughs within London, North Westminster, Chelsea, Kingston upon Surrey, etc., right? So I don't know how that would proportion itself in America, but those local area councils each had their own budget, which was given to them by the main government, so to speak. And part of that budget was for the voluntary sector. And the voluntary sector dealt with stuff like youth clubs. And so there was paid individuals who had a passion for working with youth, who would open up adventure playgrounds, youth clubs. And these were places where kids were kept off the streets. So if you went on the streets, it would be by choice. You choose to go on the streets and play bad, because you didn't have to. There was an alternative, right? And then in the late 80s, they almost totally disbanded the voluntary sector, pulled out the entire pocket of money from every local borough across the country. Now my struggle is, if we're a country and we're still paying for arms and we're still paying to maintain armies and we're still trying to manage wars in different countries that don't even concern us, how on earth can you be kicking it out in someone else's backyard when your backyard is such a mess? I still don't get that, right? You're turning out your children onto the streets, you're turning them into crooks, villains and prisoners, right? While you're investing money in armies, in guns, in ships and planes and missiles and wars in different countries, and your people in your own backyard are suffering. I struggle with that big time. But if we're going to generate an organization that's going to come back in and try and fill that gap, that has to be our first port of call, of reaching back out to because and I'm not saying that they lost the 16s and the 18s and the 20-year-olds. I'm not saying that they lost. The point I'm making is majority of them have already seen their role models. They've already decided what they want to be. They've already experienced the taste of this negative glory that they're chasing. Whereas you've got these young kids that are still impressionable, that we need to divert their attention and we need to re-engage them in order for us to be able to give them a chance of escaping this pit that our governments are making available for our people of colour. And that's what I'd like to see our organisations that are coming up trying to accomplish, is going back into the community and saying, hey, how do we save our children? How do we protect our children? How do we stop them from getting sucked into this quagmire of crime and poverty, and how do we stop that?
It's easy. I mean, that's not a difficult question. It's difficult because people don't want to take the time out. In order to solve the problem, first you got to start talking about the problem. When you was talking about what was going on in the UK in the 80s, that reminded me of what happened in the 80s here in the United States. The crack epidemic that led to the war on drugs, that led to the mass incarceration. Everybody want to forget about those crack babies that grew up.
Yeah.
All the crack babies want to lose in Isaiah K. So, and another thing that we in our community have to do is get to know each other. Mm-hmm. It's okay to speak to one another. Be involved. It's not a difficult task if this is our community. Keyword, our community. It means we have to get off, excuse my language, get off our ass and make a difference. Yeah. You can't be sitting around talking.
To go back to being a village.
Exactly.
We have to go back to being a village. And I've told people
and it takes a whole village to raise a child.
Absolutely. Exactly. But if you're involved, you're involved. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. I live on West Chicago and Schaefer, which we're going to claim that as 1 mile. My grandparents live on 7 Mile. My neighbor would see me on 7 Mile, call my mother and say, is your daughter supposed to be this far over? Do you want me to bring her home? And my mother would have to reply, no, she's with her grandparents, so they live right around the corner from where you're at. She's okay. And it was like that everywhere. My mother was getting those reports from everybody about me and my siblings. If we're traveling, you supposed to be over here? Your mama know you over here? It was like that. And you felt comforted, you felt safe because it didn't matter if they were a close neighbor or a semi-close neighbor. If they were able to get in touch with your mother, that was sanctuary.
Now you're talking you're talking community.
We don't even have neighbors that live next door to each other and speak to each other.
Yep, we won't even speak to each other. We will mug each other.
There's a difference in the community. Now I'm 32 years old. There's a difference in the people that were here back in that time with a certain. I believe in community. It takes a community, village to raise a child. I believe in that. With that particular set of people. Throughout the years, these people have changed. I can't trust that my child makes it home safely with the police on the street, let alone rapists, serial killers, and all this. So that dynamic has changed. And in regards to the kinship, back before, when I was a kid, there would be a specific person in the neighborhood that all the kids knew, all the mothers knew, all the fathers knew, because it was safe, it was okay. But there would be this specific person say, oh, that's Uncle Joe. Nobody messes with Uncle Joe. This is how he does, they protect Uncle Joe. Mm-hmm. You get a new person that comes into the community. Before we would be quick to establish some sort of kinship and welcoming them, saying, oh, this is barbecue for everybody. Everybody's welcome. But now in 2000, it ain't happening due to the fact that all of this, when the FBI, the feds want to do anything, the best thing that they do is send one of the brothers into the community to befriend this major drug dealer and snitch from within. So that's why that dynamic has changed. We don't trust each other anymore because a brother can be bought. Yeah. So we understand that. So that whole dynamic of things has changed.
But you know what I call it? I call it the Willie Lynch mental syndrome that we are going through. We have been taught to hate each other. Back then, drugs was placed in our community. So was the guns. We didn't have passports.
As they are now.
We didn't have passports. We didn't have money to go on boats,
no.
But the thing of it was, the drug dealers took care of the community. Yeah, they sold the drugs. They had the junkies, but they took care of their communities. Nowadays, it's all about self.
Mm-hmm.
It's
We
all
need to
about
get back
self.
to a place to where we police our own. Because of
Exactly.
those, there's a member in every community. I don't care what kind of community it is. There is a specific person that Miss Shirley or Miss Jones knows. You contact him, and he'll straighten the rest of this out. We need to go back to
Mm-hmm.
those days. We don't need the police. These police, when they police our communities, they are from 80, 100 miles
Department.
over. They don't know our people. They don't know who reside in this neighborhood. They're not familiar with the family or the legacy of the community. However, they're given free reign and immunity to do as they will. I'm not comfortable with that, and neither are the people in the community. You see officers, but you just randomly walk in the street, hand on gun, hand on the taser, hand on the billy club. If you gave them 8 arms, we'd all be knee deep shit in trouble. So good
Yeah.
thing they only have 2. But at the same point, how do you expect us to behave? How do you expect our mannerism to be, given the fact that you've now executed mom, sister, brother, cousin, uncle? How do I physically react to your presence?
Your reaction gonna be fuck you.
Exactly. So
It's gonna
there's a
be fuck you.
dynamic. I don't trust you and you don't trust me. Have I given you valid reason? No. But you have therefore given me all the information that I need to know that you're armed and dangerous.
But you gotta also remember though, this is another thing about, I said about being educated and educate our community. You gotta go back into when was the police formed? When did it start? It started all the way back in the 1800s. In America, what was going on in the 1800s? Slavery. The police started as slave patrols. The same badge as it was then is the same badge as the sheriff. What was the slave patrol job was? Catch a nigga, return to master. Nowadays, catch a nigga, send him to prison. That's why I call it. Just you know what? If you don't want to deal with no paperwork, we just kill you. If you want to get a promotion, go kill a nigga. If you want to go out, I want to go on vacation. I want to go on paid vacation. Well, let me go kill this nigga right here. Pack your bags,
That's
money, we going out of town.
We have serial killers in uniform, and that's as simple as that. Just like I saw a meme very recently here on Facebook that showed an act of terrorism that sent out a meme that says, "So you can kill here and go on vacation." It's like we do this sneaking in the country or being in the country and doing these things, and when we're sent to prison. So all I got to do is be a police officer and I get a paid vacation. That's a straight slap in the face.
Do you know, here in the UK, people find it very difficult to understand that there is a real race issue, as bad as it is in America. And we, again, only through my show do I get to hear a lot of this stuff, right? And so let me just bring something into the picture here. Only when a story hits worldwide headlines is it reported internationally. And normally, because America is such a large, vast country, only when it gets to that stage do other states get to hear what's happening in other states. Right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Philando Castile, right? Just recently, right? You've just seen it reported that the officers who fired those shots were cleared of all wrongdoing. I posted that just the other day. But I want to go back to Laquan McDonald. And I want to go back to Laquan McDonald for a reason. Because Laquan McDonald was very different for us, right? Now, Laquan McDonald was killed in 2014, right? But we never got to hear about this case at all. Bearing in mind the guy was shot 16 times. We never got to hear this at all until the Supreme Court ordered law enforcement to release the video camera that was available, the body cameras, the body cam videos that the officers were wearing, because for over 2 years they'd refused to release the video footage. Even on because he was by the Burger King video, right, also had footage, but 86 minutes of the recording was missing.
I mean, that's no surprise. Anybody surprised on the
No,
phone?
no, we ain't surprised.
Oh,
But so
not at all.
But so the last big case that the UK had was Laquan McDonald. Now, he was killed in 2014. How many more deaths have we had in America that are as big, if not even bigger, than Laquan McDonald's, that has not hit international headlines?
Man, there's not enough hands, toes on this radio interview right now to ask that question.
Right? Andre Gladden, right, was a huge story. I remember seeing it, right, but not hearing it. It never reached this country. It's never been featured as an item. The only time the amount of people that I've had respond privately and openly to messages based on the shows that we've done on Andre Gladden, Blind Men Can't See, they were totally shocked that somebody who was registered blind could be executed the way that Andre Gladden was killed.
Because America don't want its biggest secret out there.
Only recently you've just also heard that the care worker who was lying on the ground with his arms raised, who was shot, right? There's no charges on them either.
Well, they dropped the felony charges. He got convicted of a misdemeanor, which is a slap in the face. And that's another thing. I'm glad you actually brought that up. We have to look at the entire picture instead of looking at certain things in the picture.
Okay.
You know, when it comes down to the system, the system itself. Now, the jury decided that, okay, we always talk about getting a special prosecutor, the police policing themselves, doing their own investigation, an independent prosecutor, independent police to come in and investigate when there's an officer involved shooting. When that time does come that those officers rarely get indicted and they go to trial, look what happened to Philando Castile. Look what happened to Walter Scott. Look what happened to Laquan McDonald. I can go so on.
Let me give you a visual analogy of what our system is. First and foremost, you have to understand the judge is the auctioneer.
Exactly.
Okay, let me just put it this way. I get what you're saying, Jennifer, but here's the thing.
One that is trying to buy you, and well, the prosecutor is the one that owns you, and the defense is the one that's trying to buy you.
Okay.
But all of it does is assigns a value to your life. No matter who you are, what you did, what you were able to do, your life.
Okay, we're losing you, Yolanda. You're losing your signal. Let me just
manslaughter. It's something like that.
Okay.
To devalue us.
Okay. We lost quite a large part of that, Yolanda. Your signal went, and we lost quite a huge part of that statement that you just made. I don't know if you can remember what you said and you want to repeat it, but we lost quite a lot of it and didn't hear hardly any of it, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, I can do it again.
Do it again.
Okay. I said the judge is the auctioneer. The jury is the people bidding. Prosecutor is the owner. Defense is the person trying to buy. Your life's value is assigned based on this system where the charge is what the value is. If they charge you with murder, they charge you that, then you're valuable. If they charge you with manslaughter or involuntary manslaughter or negligence, you wouldn't worth that much. And then when it comes down to the sentencing of these officers, that's the punchline. Well, you kind of were of value, but your toes was a little short. You didn't pull too much. It's something wrong with you that you don't have a value. Your life has no value. And to let this system continue to go on the way that it is letting it go the way that it was designed. We're not supposed to be. We're not supposed to have a value. And all those Uncle Tom and Aunt Thomasina's out there helping, they don't value themselves.
Because you got to remember, when the Constitution was written, we was considered 3/4 of a human being.
Right, and we were not. It wasn't written place. But at the same time, I laugh at that Constitution for this reason. And Kervin already knows what I'm about to say. Because one tenth of a drop of our blood makes whomever a black person. So who has the power? Seriously, think about it. Who has the power? Because a white man can't make a white baby with anybody but a white woman. A black man can make a Blackanese, a mulatto, a Mexican American, whatever. A black man or a black woman can make a black baby with anybody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So who don't have the power? It's already in our blood, our DNA.
It's already in our DNA. Let me just go back to the courtroom setup a minute, right? Because it was important what Jennifer was saying just a short while ago, especially about the courtroom setup. There's 2 points that I wanted to raise about the courtroom setup. When we were talking about the Philando Castile and everybody else, etc., and you were talking about the juries, etc. It's very interesting to try and learn what the demographic makeup of those juries were or are when they're adjudicating over cases like this. Let me just finish. And secondly, right, that battle that they have at the beginning, when the juries are wheeled in one by one, and you've got the defense and the prosecutor saying, right, so how do you feel about the death penalty, sir? And he says, oh well, I'm not for it. Yeah, we strike that one guy. We strike that one. We don't want a guy on the jury. And they are creating a jury, manufacturing a jury, right, to get the outcome that they want, based on what they believe the beliefs are of those that are going to sit down and adjudicate over this trial. So it's got nothing to do with presenting evidence when it comes to defending or prosecuting an individual who may be innocent or guilty. The district attorneys and the prosecutors preempt what the outcome of that might be when they first start to select who that jury might be. And I've never seen the defense have the power to overrule who the prosecution want in that jury box, which means that we're always fighting on the back foot from the get-go. That's a system that has to change if we're to get fair trials. Pardon?
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Before we can even talk about that, people want to fail to realize what with Selma, Alabama, Martin Luther King fought for voting rights for what? To get blacks on the jury pool to convict the whites. We're still not on the jury pool because they have put voter suppression.
Yeah.
Number one thing, you cannot vote in America if you are a felony.
Yeah.
It's more African American that has felonies. So we can't even get to the jury to even get selected. And if we do get on there, as my mentor say, we have the handkerchief heads. The Walter Scott case. It was a black jury. He was facing a felony charge, and all of a sudden, his felony charges got dismissed. The jury came as a mistrial. He didn't want to go to another trial, so he pled guilty to violating his civil rights. We don't even make it to the jury selection.
So it's all about influence, right? Are we agreed that it's all about influence? How can we influence the outcome of miscarriages of justice if we can't even get into the fight in the first place?
You got to get rid of the system.
So
that's how the system is designed. The system is designed for that.
So we have to find another way of fighting where we're fighting before they get into the system, because that's the only place where we actually have the advantage to influence and win. So organizations like Post, like Blind, for me, are very important when it comes to getting into the infrastructure of the community at a very young age, making resources available to help people change the direction of their path. That's where the battle is going to be won or lost. Because by the time they get into the system, the battle, I'm afraid, appears to have already been lost. I watched When They See Us. I watched, like everybody else, as those kids were paraded and beaten and tortured, and I watched as the trial went. I watched as they fabricated and manufactured the evidence, and I listened and heard, as most of the jury would have heard, how inconsistent the evidence that was being presented, and I, like every one of the millions of viewers who watched the program, including the judge who posted a picture of himself crying after he watched it, was absolutely dumbstruck that those boys were found guilty, even though there wasn't a shred of evidence against them. If we can't even win in a fair fight, we got to draw the battle lines closer to an area where we can influence. We got to move the battle line, because at the moment we're fighting in the enemy's camp. We're fighting with the enemy's tools. We're fighting with the enemy's resources, and we're limited to what they're going to allow us to use in that fight. It's like going into a fight with a guy who's got the whole armor, the whole weaponry system available to him, and he says, "Here you go, guys. Here's a little ruler that you can whack me with. In the meantime, I got this machine gun." That's the difference of the battle that we're fighting. They've got all the tools, they've got all the weapons, they've got all the resources, and we're going there with the little thing that they're allowing us to use, cap in hand, hoping that somebody's going to almost feel sorry for us enough to give us a victory this time. We've got to move the battle lines, friends. We've got to move the battle lines. We've got to bring the battle lines closer to a place where we actually can control the narrative. We can control the directive. We can control where we go from here. We've got to bring the battle lines back to the community. We got to change.
What's going to happen? We're going to have a revolution. The revolution is coming.
Yolanda, 7 chapters potentially of Post. How discouraging is it for you as a mother who cannot even see justice for the own loss of your own daughter, as you continually battle for those other mothers? How discouraging does it feel at times for you?
It can be very discouraging. I do my best not to say woe is me. You know, I don't want anybody to feel that I am begrudging anybody who gets any sort of victory or validation of their loved one. I just know that what I'm doing is building the legacy of my daughter. So seeing justice would be that officer locked up for life. The only way that he could see his kids is through bars. You know, if he don't have enough time on in his lot, he can't talk to them. You know, those kind of things. I I am an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth kind of person, but I just don't buy into the sins of the Father being visited upon the Son. Because if I did, I could make him feel what I feel.
Yeah.
Real easy, because he has a firstborn too. But that's not me. So I try not to be discouraged by seeing somebody else get victory. I take that as fuel to help someone else get theirs. I'm the kind of person that believes in moving forward.
Yeah.
And I tell my kids all the time, my grandkids too, you can't see where you're going by looking where you've been.
Amen to that.
It must be a very difficult place to be, to keep putting one foot in front of the other when there seems to be so much being pitched against us, right?
Yes. I mean, it's like they have a endless well of opposition. You say the sky is blue, they say it's black. You say I'm moving backwards. You say I'm standing still, they say you're sinking, swiftly. So we are always battling something. But my thing is to not allow ourselves to be, tricked by worrying about what the right hand doing instead of paying attention to the left hand. And that's what they do with us. They distract us. They give us busy work. They do whatever they need to do to continue to do what they want to do. And we can't fall for the okie doke. Sometimes you got to step back and let that swing go by. Don't react to it. See what's coming next, and then deal with that, because that's the real deal. They are well practiced and versed in distracting. That's like, all these people didn't know what was going on with Iran and that orange thing.
Yeah.
But that's because he kept busy looking at North Korea and all this other stuff with the Russians. Yeah, they got to brighten up.
Not only they gonna do the distractions, they gonna come up with a narrative
that's trying to lead anything or anyone. But like I tell people all the time, you can't afford not to pay attention.
Here's the thing. Is there any cases, Jennifer, that stand out for you, that you believe that if you could have got blind involved, it would have and could have made a difference?
You want my honest answer?
Yeah.
The way this system is set up and designed, no matter what evidence we have, no matter what we say, no matter what we do, in their mind, the officer feels for their life. Only thing we can do is get out there and get those elected, them politricians, get them out of office, get the ones that's actually groundwork in the community and that's doing the work to go in there, get those ones out of there. New chiefs, because it's a chain of order. You got to start high. You got to, like you said, lead by example. You got to lead by example. Until then, no matter what case it is or what it is and what is not, the outcome is going to be the same. Just like the incident that happened here last week with Brandon Weber. They already done put a narrative out there. What led up to the shooting? You get involved, they're going to come out with another narrative. They're going to come out and destroy the victim and make him out to a suspect. So now you're thinking, well, he wasn't nothing but a criminal. The officer did his job. We first have to learn to do is take control of that narrative. We don't need the media because we have our own media, social media. We all have cell phones. This thing called technology. What they really hate we have that against them.
In the case of in the case of Brandon Weber, they actually claimed, right, that he was wanted for a shooting, right?
Allegedly. Now, here's the thing. Allegedly for a car theft. And he shot the person multiple times. Now, this is all allegedly now. But we have known and seen history where y'all have taken white suspects who have committed that crime. Y'all take them alive. Matter of fact, y'all take them to Burger King. But someone who's allegedly done killed the crime, someone who is unarmed, someone as in Miss D's situation, brother is blind, someone in Miss Miller's situation, daughter hugged the police officer, unarmed.
Hold on, and somebody like Little Vic, who was handcuffed behind his back and managed to shoot himself in the chest.
We can go on and on, so... And what do? They turn around and reverse the whole thing.
So this document that we received for qualified immunity explained.
Yeah.
It's just flat out as it is. Qualified immunity protects those officers in the event to prevent them from becoming bankrupt. Because obviously, citizen to citizen, I can definitely file suit against you. However, these police officers, this input is put in place by the judges to prevent them going into bankruptcy because of the fact that had they not been officers, the cases could be filed against them and they can be their actions would be justified. But in this case, qualified immunity is simply to say, I can do it and you can't. And it's just as simple as that. This is it. The qualified immunity protects law enforcement in general. Doesn't matter what they do, how they do it. That's the excuse. That's the fallback.
And the unfortunate thing is that, 1 second, the unfortunate thing is this qualified immunity is the underlying issue to every get out clause these officers have had week in and week out, case after case. The public are absolutely, totally unaware of how come these technicalities are finding people not guilty.
Because you have, like she said, a judge. And that's why I said it goes back to we got to look at the bigger picture. Instead of looking at certain parts of the picture, we got to look at the bigger picture. You have judges. Everybody want to talk about the Klan didn't go nowhere. They just took off their robes and put on
wigs.
Civil Act of 1870 is also the KKK Act.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So we have to go with judges. Like she said, the judge, somebody had to create that bill, somebody had to pass that bill, and somebody had to sign that bill.
Yeah.
It's a chain of command.
The article actually goes in depth about that and how the qualified immunity is extended to advocate groups. Nobody, where did that come from? Where did that come from? I just read that. So where did that come from? So this qualified immunity is known to be extended to activist groups and advocacies.
Oh, Blue Lives Matter?
Yeah. That's what I'm assuming.
Because it doesn't relate to us, that's for sure. We are not protected by qualified immunity.
Exercise this one. Let me figure out a way to exercise this one.
And that's what they're doing. They're coming up with laws just like stand your ground. That shit ain't for us. It's for them.
But the emphasis on where the qualified immunity lies, it lies with somebody who is employed by the government. That's where it rules us out. So we can be advocates, we could be activists, but because we're not doing it on behalf of the local government or the national government, we don't come under qualified immunity.
Yeah, I said that's why the FOP Blue Lives Matter, those were their activist groups.
Mm-hmm.
Who passed it? Because ain't nobody in their right mind gonna look at that bill. That should have never got passed. But that's why I go back and say, you got to look at the bigger picture. And that's why I say the system ain't broken. We don't need to reform the system. It's doing just what it's designed to do.
Yeah, this document that we were sent over says that qualified immunity permits law enforcement or other government officials to violate people's constitutional rights with virtual impunity. Today that we hear about police shootings, police-involved murders, which police officers are rarely held accountable for the criminal legal system, either because the prosecutor declines to charge, because the grand jury declines to indict, or because the jury declines the conviction. This is what we know already. This, like you said, this goes way up and beyond. So this is embedded in the fibers of America, honestly. So it's going to take more organizations like Post. It's going to take more organizations like Blind to get to, because this is deeply enrooted in the fibers. We got to chuck up the root in the whole tree. And that means it's going to take time. And sad to say that there's going to be a lot more lives lost due to the cause to make sure that this doesn't happen. And obviously, we already know it's not going to happen overnight, because from the point of the Mississippi event, what was that with Emmett Till, his mother? No indictment since then from that point.
Yeah.
So that further, pisses me off, obviously, and that happened August 1955.
Yeah.
And thank God for her, because she unleashed the blanket on the whole situation, as to say she had a decision whether to, expose what was done to Emmett and the severity of it. She made a choice to display all of these things so that the surrounding neighborhoods, the surrounding community, and nationwide can see what's going on in our today's society at that point and today. So thank God for her not wanting to shield the world from what is happening and what will continue to happen. So that's why organizations are in place now. And so it started with her, and it's definitely not going to end with Post or with Blind, because there has to be something. There's too many children that are still, we've buried so many, and so many of the kids that are, Andre was 35 at the time. He has 5 children. He has 2 grandchildren. One and one on the way. But what we do for today, for me and for many others, is the better future for them.
Yeah.
So the same laws that we're governed under, hopefully that shit changes. Because there's not, who can the government hold responsible for these actions if you allow these police and serial killers to kill off anybody? Who are you superior to? Who do you think you're going to be superior to?
And here lies one of our biggest problems, and potentially one of our biggest avenues to succeed. Right? The biggest problem that we have in trying to fight this battle is that this always appears to be a race battle, right? It is a race battle. It is. We understand it is a race battle. But as long as we fight it as a race battle, we can't win, simply because they already have the power. Now, when we start arguing, right, about law and the way that the law situates, right, where there are other people who are suffering because of that law, and we unite with other organizations that have an affiliation to loss because of that law, we can start building up some momentum. Yolanda has said it many times. This is not about race. This is about police brutality and corrupt police law enforcement office. This is about laws and legislations that are wrong. This is about the officers' Bill of Rights, which should have no standing in modern society, right? And the only way we're going to get past that is to unite with everybody and anybody that suffers under these laws, because these laws are not just subjected to people of color, even though we suffer more than most. That's a fact. I'm not denying that. We suffer these laws more than most. But you've got people like Travis, Teresa's son. He was killed by cops. You've got people like Tyler Russian, right? That's Scott Russian's son. His son was killed by cops. He is white. No, there are people who are going through the same pain that we are going through, that have the same battle to fight that we fight for different reasons. But the law that they need to fight is the same one that we need to fight, because this law doesn't just protect law enforcement officers against people of color. It protects law enforcement officers against anybody they unlawfully kill.
Right.
So as long as we continue to keep this a race war or a race fight, we're going to be losing the battle, because half the people we need on our side that are not felons, that can vote, are not fighting for us. They're fighting for themselves. We need to get people on board. We need to get people to join forces with us, not because it's a color issue, but because it's wrong. And why do you ladies keep on battling week in, week out? I asked you the question a while ago, Yolanda, how discouraging it must be knowing that there's very little, if any, victories to be had, and the ones that we do have are so few and far between. But you keep on going because you know it's right. Dee, Therese, Jennifer, you all keep on going because you know it's right to carry on, and it's wrong that we're subjected to what we're subjected to. So we got to learn to start putting race aside and finding people we can join forces to that can actually enhance the influence that we have to overcome the laws and legislations that govern us, and get those people out of power that Jennifer was talking about earlier on, that we can't get out of power because most of the people that we need to vote with us are felons and don't have the right to vote. There are also Latinos and Mexicans that don't actually have the right to vote. They're being subjected to this. Once we start utilizing the real cause behind, and again, I don't want to use this sentence lightly, hide behind our color. Let's fight the law openly, using every tool, every resource, using every accessibility made available to us. A white guy gets shot by police down the road, let's go bring him in. Let's bring that family in under our fold too. Because you know why? Black lives, we wouldn't have to have Black Lives Matter if all lives really mattered. We've said it umpteen times. But what we do know is that there's a different argument for them than there is for us. There's always one more reason they've got to kill us, and that's because we're black. But white folk are getting shot out there too. Latinos, Mexicans and immigrants are being shot and killed too. This is not a race war. This is a war against corrupt law enforcement with unworkable, unethical legislation that works in favor of corrupt law enforcement officers, that keeps them in jobs while they kill innocent men and women right across your country. How can we work with the other organizations in order for us to get these laws and legislations changed? Now, that's the question for you, Jennifer.
First, we sit down and have a conversation. We put together a plan. You got to be strategic when you go to them. You can't go in there without a plan. You sit down, you talk. You know what your community want. I know what my community want. Let's bring this together.
You see the problem, you're quite right. You see the problem that we face most of the time is the moment we start talking about race to white folks that are going through the same thing as us, they automatically get their back up because of the guilt that they already feel, knowing what we've been through.
But here's the thing.
But rather we approach it, I've never, since the beginning of this thing, I've never made it about, a race issue, because so many from different cultures, different backgrounds, this is happening too. So this type of discrimination does not, this type of injustice does not discriminate. That's apparent.
Absolutely.
So
but you see, I've got people like you. I've got people like Yolanda. I've only just met Jennifer, but I know you guys stand for that. I haven't got an issue with that. What I'm referring to is majority of the organizations, especially those that are more longer standing than yours, those that have been out there for the last 10 and 20 years, that's the platform that they've been shouting from. And unfortunately, that's what's been stopping those that can support us from supporting us.
Because you got to look at it like this. The organization that's 20 years, there was in a different time. We are the middle child between the old generation and the new generation. Yeah. That's why I said we have to sit down and have that conversation. The conversation is not going to be easy. It's not going to be hee ha ha laughing. No, it's going to be some tears cry. Might get to the point some fists might be thrown. It's going to be ugly. But that conversation has to start. Until that conversation start, it's going to always be what we in now talking about it. We have to. That's why I said we get together. That's the first thing. And have the conversation. And then once we have that conversation amongst each other, then we work on what we need to get past. But we can't do none of that until we have that conversation.
One of the things that we need to start looking at is we need to start looking at some of those other groups that are working in other cultures, in other states, in other communities, and we need to start having meetings with them. You've got the Christine Arachegas, you've got the Lori Valdezes, you've got legends who have been fighting police brutality for Latinos, Mexicans, and different types of immigrants across the states for years. Right, this pooling those experiences and those resources around some sort of a table and having this conversation is exactly the starting point that we need if we are going to be tackling things like qualified immunity and the Officers' Bill of Rights that protect officers. I've asked this question to almost every one of my guests who have sat before me or been on my show talking about the loss of a loved one. And that is, if a law enforcement officer had held his hand up and said, I made a mistake, right? Would it have been any easier? No, it wouldn't have been any easier, but it would have felt much better that somebody was taking responsibility and holding himself accountable for wrongdoing. The problem that we have is that when they have made the mistake, they then go and manufacture, right, evidence and criminalize innocent people in order to justify the wrong that they've just done, which then creates all of the bitterness and resentment that we see spoiling out into the streets.
That's why you have when we say Black Lives Matter, that's when you hear the All Lives Matter come in.
And, I really, when somebody turns around and says that to me, I have to hold back my feelings of resentment and offense because they just don't get it.
Well, some people, when you say that, you might get punched. It is a beautiful sight seeing somebody getting punched for saying all lives matter, especially at a visual. Yeah. You just don't do that.
You have to just go into the mindset, like the Bible say, don't entertain a fool. Because me entertaining a fool with my temperament, I just may end up right in custody where I don't want to be. Further hell.
Look, D, I told Miss Yolanda this. You got to remember, you got two type of black folks. You got black folks and you got niggas. You got Pookie and Ray Rays. Yeah. You don't want to mess with Pookie and Ray Rays.
I'm a little bit of both. So you're going to have to take it on a good day.
So you know how to flip that switch.
Yeah, you got to. Or you wind up, you get caught out of here on the street or you go to jail and they catch you in there. I ain't got time for neither one of them.
True.
The most important thing.
Law enforcement doesn't like to see an African American with a brain. They do not like to see when you go into repeating what your constitutional rights are and how you're in the right and they're in the wrong. That's a threat to them. You're instantly going after their person, their badge. That's an insult. That's a threat to them. They don't like to see an African-American woman or man or child with any kind of common sense who actually knows who they are. That is a direct
and the funny thing is, that is my biggest weapon,
is the fact that I know who I am and I'm not afraid of who I am in my skin.
And that's back to when I said education. We gotta educate our kids. Not only the kids, shit, the damn adults.
Yeah.
So
here's the thing. Their biggest victory is not that they're killing our folks. Their biggest victory is not that they're getting away with it. Their biggest victory, you know what their biggest victory is? Their biggest victory is the propaganda that they're able to use to keep us fighting against each other, ununified, so that we can't fight the real fight.
That's true. That's
true. The biggest victory they have.
All these other distractions come in.
There's
always
prejudice, hatred, resentment, wars, factions, frictions, you name it, conflict. All of these things are propaganda tools and weapons that are being used to keep us apart so that we can't join forces and beat them. That's why we've got to put down those tools. That's why we've got to put down our weapons of race. That's why we've got to put down our hate to one side. And that's why we've got to say, you know what? We're fighting the same fight. We just don't know it. But if we fight it together, we've got a better chance of winning it.
But what current, or maybe this is at most a conversation or a question direct more towards Yolanda and Jennifer. Here in Sacramento, as I said it before, it's not as active in regards to bringing awareness. People shun the fact when I did a protest at the Art Mall actually, and I came across a woman who we were handing out. We had our signs, the bullhorns, our what was it? Our little pamphlets we were handing out. And the woman looks to me and says, "Oh, y'all still doing this?" Oh, and I looked at her. I looked. My face said something, but my mouth didn't, and I thank God for it. But I'm having the hardest time because, like Yolanda said, you have people that are timid to stand up to law enforcement or to what burdens they may occur if they, God forbid, they happen to speak out against law enforcement and now they're arrested. Now this is a financial burden to get them out. I come across a lot of people who want nothing to do with it because it goes against, a family situation, or they're not going to speak on this because they affiliate with this particular set of people. And I don't want to offend people. This is not a fight for me. I'll let you guys do that type deal. So how do you break it? How do you break through to those individuals? Because if it's not directly affecting them, it is affecting them in one way, but it silences them. It does not provoke them to speak or to unite, for that matter.
I'm having that same issue.
To work, to be involved and engage. I have some people in Portland with my Portland chapter that they like to do a lot of campaign write-ins and postcards to their legislators. But we need to get ahead of that and find the attorneys or create the attorneys who are not afraid to take on the police department and will stand up for those families who have been threatened, and allow those people to have that voice to say, look, I'm trying to stand up for my kid that got killed, but they're threatening the other one that's locked up and only got 6 months to go. Because I know people who have gone through that. I've heard officers say, well, and it's just a phone call that's all I need to make, But at the same time, officers need to understand, and I'm not trying to say go out and do violence or anything to them, but you got to walk out a door to go to work. You got to walk out a door to go home. So stop running around thinking that you're invincible, because you'll get out of jail free card don't get you out of a grave.
I feel you, and I also feel where D coming from as well, because like I said, I'm kind of having that same issue here when you talk to people and they like, oh, that's still going on and this and that. Well, I'm not going to get involved. But what I've learned is certain people, they won't get involved until it hit home.
Mm-hmm.
And when it hit home, they going to feel some type of way. And some people, you just got to continue to do what you're doing, because the way that it's going and the way the system is designed, it's going to be a lot of more bloodshed going to happen. And it's going to be forced upon them. Right now, we're in that process. You got to remember, the civil rights movement lasted 10 years. When Emmett Till was the face of the civil rights movement, because his mom put those images out there, sparked the civil rights movement.
That's right. That's right.
And they don't want to teach that in history. That goes back again when I said educate, because they only talk about the ending part. They don't never want to talk about the trenches part, where people was out there by themselves. The four students that sat at South Carolina at the lunch counter, they had the courage to step up. And then what happened? It was a domino effect.
Mm-hmm.
With Selma, Alabama, those people had the courage to go walk across that bridge. And the consequences was what happened. And then what turned around and happened. It's a domino effect. Yeah. We have to learn history. History has taught us. The Marcus Garveys have taught us. The Martin Luther Kings have taught us. The Malcolm X's have taught us. The Nat Turners, the Harriet Tubman has taught us. So what we have to do is learn from them and take what they did and use it to this modern day system.
Okay,
we have technology.
Yeah, we're coming up roundabout to we've just gone past the last 15 minutes, and I really want to make sure that everybody can get in what they want to get in before the show is over. But there is a question that I do want to ask, and you guys can take it in turn. To answer from your own perspectives, and looking from your own cases and looking from your own communities. This battle that we fight, these issues that we face, is it right that we're fighting it community after community? What I mean by that is, for example, an individual gets shot in Memphis, Tennessee, whatever it is, right? And all the people come out in that area and they battle out there for a while, and then they form a group of people, and these guys continue to campaign. Or do we look to start creating coalitions right across all states that are going through these things, and the moment there is an incident, should we not go and join forces with them, bring our resources, bring our people, bring our protesting to go and meet with them and draw them in and almost bring them into the family like we do here on Issues Today? Would that not be more proactive? Would that be more beneficial rather than the individual community standings that we're continuing to see going across state from state? And I don't mind who wants to answer that first. Let's go to D first.
Kevin, you kind of cut out on my end on the last part of that question.
So I'm talking about basically the organizations that are going, basically fighting campaigns within their own communities. Should they be, when something happens, right, should not a post or someone else go and join with them and bring them in, rather than wait for them to form something for themselves, so to speak, and then now you've got another organization trying to battle for the same thing that you're battling for over there. Again, I'm talking about trying to form coalitions to fight against the Officers' Bill of Rights and the legislation that keeps allowing them to get away with it. What's the best way forward? Is it to allow communities, right, to make their own little groups and battle, or should we be trying to form coalitions with those communities?
I think of forming a coalition within the community. It is best, and numbers are a big deal. So when you have two people here that have gone through a particular situation for about 3 weeks, 3 months, opposed to an organization that has been founded in this specific town for years. That's wisdom, that's knowledge, that's everything that this new family can be advised of or be supported through. So there should definitely be some coalition. But as you stated a bit early on in regards to the different organizations blasting each other in a negative way, it seems as though that is drawing the families to separate and to go about their justice in their own way. So the coalition is definitely important for both the organizations as well as the family, because when you start to, try and solidify that this incident is more important than this one, then the family gets offended. And then they don't want to, support each other. So I think it's definitely important for the families to unite, given that experience and that support.
Fantastic. Yolanda, me and you have had this conversation on several occasions, right? Especially in private. And when we talk about certain individuals who like to do their own thing and do it their own way, irrespective of what's already in place and available, how important is it for organization? Because I like what Post is doing. 7 chapters. Sooner or later, once you've got right across the place, it'll make something like what you're doing a lot more accessible right across all states. How important is it for us to have coalitions right across every state that's going through these type of difficulties?
Is vitally important. We need to evolve and get beyond that crab mentality where we don't want somebody to shine more than us or get out the barrel before us. I wish people would truly adopt my philosophy of each one reach one, each one teach one.
I would do it.
We have to move forward together. We cannot be effective separately. And coalitions are a great way to do that. But we always have to be able to reach across borders, across a state line, and say that we're here for you and that we will help you. Dee knows that. The day that she did the show and I was texting, I told her, get in touch with me. And then she found out that people that she knew were my people.
Mm-hmm.
And that I don't have a problem reaching across a state line. I don't care. If I can make it there, I will. If I don't, I'll find somebody there. I did that for a young lady in Arizona. She was by herself trying to fight. I don't know anybody. And I said, hold on. I know somebody in your state. And come to find out they was 20-minute ride from each other. And I put them together. But we have to be willing to do that and stop looking for glory. This isn't a glory thing, and this isn't a situation where your kids' value, is your fame. Those people need to get the hell up out of here because they're hindering us. But Dee is right. We are our strength is in our numbers.
Absolutely.
And I explained that to some people about a silent protest that we're going to do soon. And they're like, what's a silent protest? I said, the creepiest thing you ever did see. People standing still and not talking.
That's right.
Okay, because that leaves all those people who have been wrong, who are doing wrong, they're left to their own devices and their imagination. And those are the scariest monsters ever. Because they don't know what we want to do. They don't know what we're planning to do. We're not sitting up there hollering and marching back and forth, wearing out the soles of our shoes. We're just standing still. It's a message. It says we're here and we're not going anywhere, and we'll outlast you. And unfortunately, that's the crux of our problem is that we have to have sustainability. We have to be able to last, some longevity in it. You get a pop-up group, these are flash in the pans things that they ignore because they're used to it. They'll cry, they'll yell, they'll march, and then they'll go to hell on. Post is here for a reason. And Post is just like a post in the ground. We're going to stand firm. We're going to stand strong. We don't mind working with other organizations. We don't have that ego about us. Well, if our name's not first or we're not doing, it's none of that. I don't care. Say your name as loud as you want to, as many times as you want to. But are we being effective?
And that's
what we have.
Absolutely. That's why I love working with you, Yolanda. Nail on the head. So, Jennifer, do you hear and understand, and have you got an opinion on how we move forward in creating coalitions as opposed to pocket groups? or pop-up groups, as Yolanda just referred to?
Everything that everybody said, man, I totally agree. Like Miss Yolanda said, that crab in a bucket mentality. We also gotta realize that everyone that looks like us isn't for us.
Yeah.
You got
Lord
to
Jesus.
remember. We got to bring reality to the table. You can't sugarcoat things. You deal with certain people the way you need to deal with them. Like my great grandma always tell me, baby, you deal with a person. You don't never burn your bridges you might have to cross one day. You always treat people with a long handle spoon. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X in the beginning, they didn't see eye to eye for a long time, but they was fighting for the same issue. And when they did come together, did you see how powerful their force was? They didn't have no choice but to kill them.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. We all leaders. We all come together. They can't kill us all.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to have to weave out the ones that need to be weaved out. If you only here for this right here, then I know how to deal with you. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we got to get rid of the wolves in sheep clothing, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I haven't said it, I'm being nice, but I'm just going to be honest with you. We got to expose these house niggas out here.
Yeah.
Expose the ones who only time you see them is when they on the news media. They only come out when the camera's around.
Mm-hmm.
If the camera's not there, they not participating.
Jennifer, you ain't gonna get me yelling on this line, so I'm just gonna mute my mic.
So we just got a couple of minutes left, ladies, and I'm going to leave each one of you to give me one more comment as to how we move forward into bringing about awareness and cohesion to this fight against police brutality. D. Martin first.
Unite people, get out there and talk to each other, mingle, put the phones down, speak, have a conversation. See, let me know what's going on with you. There's organizations that can help, that are willing to help, but we need to speak about it so we can do something about it.
Amen. Yolanda.
And thank you all so much. Jennifer, thank you so much for participating in that silent protest on Facebook, February 19th, Good Friday. Definitely appreciate that.
No problem. We got to stand up.
That's
Amen.
right.
Yolanda, last comment from you.
Okay, I'm here. You have to look at this for what it is. It's a war for power. They can't outbreed us, so they gotta kill us all.
That's true.
They can't. They can't change our mind about who we are, so therefore they kill us. They are no longer. This is no longer that back in the day, 60s, 30s, 40s, whatever you want to reach back to.
I'm not my grandparents. I would beat them.
We're not those people. We're not afraid like they want us to be. So when we get mouthy, when we start spewing the truth, yeah, they scared of that. They don't like it, and they want to run away or make you stop. But my thing is, I'm not going down without taking somebody with me. I'm not going to go out without a fight. I don't care who it is, when it is, what it is. Bring it. I will show you what Detroit is like.
Amen. Thank you very much. Last comment from you, Jennifer.
I'm not my grandparents.
I hear you.
Don't let this orange fuck in your fucked up mind get your ass whooped.
Amen.
Because let me tell you something. They didn't kidnap slaves. They kidnapped doctors, scientists. astronauts. We built this country. We ain't finna go the history of this country that y'all don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
We are strong and powerful. All we got to do is stand up.
That's right.
All we got to do is stand up.
Okay.
But in order for us to
zero.
stand up, we have to unite. We have to come together, and we have to know what we're fighting against and who we fighting against.
Amen. We're right out of time, guys.
With you,
we are right out of time. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for joining us on today's show. Jennifer, D, Yolanda, you've been absolutely awesome.
Thank you.
TJ, do you want a last comment before we go? No. Yeah.
I really do. Really, really, really fast. You guys were absolutely on fire today. So much knowledge was put out. I'm so glad that you joined our show, and now so many more people know how to become advocates. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. My guests, Jennifer Cain, D. Martin, Yolanda McNair, TJ, Teresa Gallagher, my producer. I want to thank you, the audience, who have all tuned in today for your comments, your contributions, and your support. We'll be back next week for Blind Men Can't See Part 2 with D. Martin, alongside my shotgun rider, co-host and producer, TJ Therese Gallagher. We're back next week. We've run out of time. That's all we've got time for. We're out of here.
It's for the people who are wondering why we're in the streets and we're outraged. It's basically a rundown of what's happened, and this is recent. And it's if you run, you die. Hashtag Walter Scott. If you stay and get arrested, you die. Hashtag Freddie Gray. Lay down while handcuffed, you die. Hashtag Eric Harris. Hashtag Oscar Grant. If you fight back, you die. Hashtag Trayvon Martin. If you mind your business, you die. Hashtag John Crawford. Put your hands up, you die. Hashtag Mike Brown. Proclaim your innocence, you die. Hashtag Eric Garner. Getting married, you die. Hashtag Sean Bell. Pan-sagging, you die. Hashtag Irvin Edwards. Beg for your life, you die. Hashtag Thaddeus McCarroll. Hashtag Cedric Barty. Just alive at 12 years old outside playing, you die. Hashtag Tamir Rice. Be outside, you die. Hashtag Rekia Boyd. Be at home chilling, you die. Hashtag Katherine Johnston. Run into your home, you die. Hashtag Ramarley Graham. Injured asking for help, you die. Hashtag Jonathan Farrell. Be in a stairwell, you die. Hashtag Akai Gurley. Smoke a cigarette, you die. Hashtag Sandra Bland.
Wow.
World Jam Global Radio. This is clarity.